Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Thursday, July 28th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, the Biden administration suggests a prisoner swap to get Britney Griner home. But will this proposal be substantial enough to secure her release from a Russian prison? We have the details at the start of the show. Meanwhile, a judge sentenced the last two former Minneapolis cops who were negligent in the final moments of George Floyd's death to federal court. How long will those men stay behind bars? We have the story. Then, a police officer was released from her job after body camera footage caught her using a racial slur.
Chris Rock breaks his silence on getting slapped by Will Smith, and Tamar Braxton says Usher is in a league of his own when it comes to R&B singers. Now, we have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
There's a deal in the works to try and get WNBA star Britney Griner out of a Russian jail and back to the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. has made a substantial proposal to secure the release of Griner and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, who has been in Russian custody since 2018. According to reports, the duo would be traded for Victor Bout, a notorious Russian arms dealer nicknamed the Merchant of Death.
But we have two objectives. We, of course, want to see those who are wrongfully detained be released and be able to return home. At the same time, it's important that we work to reinforce the global norm against these arbitrary detentions, against what is truly a horrific practice. So we're working concertedly on both.
A similar prisoner swap freed Trevor Reed from a Russian prison in April. Griner, she pled guilty to having cannabis oil in her luggage. She testified yesterday that she didn't intend to break any laws and that she was made to sign documents without a translation or being informed of her rights. Griner's next court date is next month. So we know that apparently as of today, there has been no agreement reached on this issue, but I am glad that they made the deal. So that's in the works, and we'll see what happened. According to Secretary Blinken, they've been working on this for weeks. So I think there were rumors about it, and he's now confirming that they have been working on this for weeks. The Russian arms dealer, he's serving a 25-year prison sentence for conspiring to kill Americans, to acquire and export anti-aircraft missiles and provide material to terrorist organizations. So he sounds like a pretty bad guy, and but we got to do what we got to do to get Britney and Paul Whelan home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just always wonder, what is the how did they figure out what was going to need to happen? How did they figure, what was the process, right, to figuring out we're going to have to get somebody else? How did they decide who it was going to be? Because I'm sure there are some other people from Russia that they could have chosen. I'm just curious to know what was the thought process, is what I'm trying to say, behind choosing this man over. Did you have some more details?
No, I was just going to say that they have been asking for him. I believe Russia has been asking for him for a long time. And so they're finally like, well, we can play, let's make a deal. You have something we want, we have something you want. So
honestly, and that might have been the best deal. Honestly, if they've been asking for him to come back, we've been asking for Britney Griner. This whole thing could have been a ploy to get one of their people back. This whole thing, because it's been stretched out, right, longer than it should have. So I don't know, I'm curious to see what you think, Romeo, too, because I think it was kind of a chess game they were playing the whole time.
They're definitely playing chess with this one, and you think about what this guy was convicted of, and those things are pretty powerful, pretty scary in some ways, right? But Britney Griner's been in there for over 160 days. So, and there was a time where we all kind of felt like maybe the White House and the president was not doing enough to try and get her home soon enough. Maybe this has been in the work for months, but they just really couldn't talk about it to now. If that is the case, it seems like we're getting closer to possibly getting her home. But again, what they're making the trade for, this guy, he's done a lot, and he's pretty dangerous, so we don't want this to bite us, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, Romeo, because the crimes do not match what we're dealing with here, what he's done here, what Britney Griner has done allegedly here with, holding cannabis oil, literally does not match. So I wonder what the people in Russia feel, knowing that this man is going to be back on the Russian streets, or he could stay in the U.S. for all we know, right? And so then we have a dangerous person, an actually dangerous person that could be on our hands or in the Russians, running around Russia. So I hope that this is being thought through, because yes, we want Britney Griner home, but also do we want to create more trouble for everyone else here outside of jail when we get this man released from prison? I think that they should be someone equally accountable, like a marijuana
Russia
charge.
doesn't, and that's why there's like. That's why this is going down. Like they control the situation.
That's a good point.
So they get to call the shots. So
Absolutely.
And like we said yesterday, Britney, before she went, she knew there was this warning going on, and so I think Russia seized the moment. They knew what was going down with the war, what they were planning in Ukraine. I mean, it all lined up perfectly for Russia. So they have the upper hand, and so we got to do what they want to do.
Not checkers is exactly what happened here. We're going to have more on that for you, soulmates. Now, President Biden is trying to convince the American public the U.S. economy is not entering a recession. The efforts come as the Commerce Department released new gross domestic product numbers today, which show it's shrinking at an annual rate of 0.9% in the second quarter. That's after it fell 1.6% the previous quarter. Economists say it signals the unofficial start of the recession. Fears of recession have been talked about a lot, and it could impact hiring. Now, the bad news will be a major blow to Democrats' chances of keeping control of both houses of the Congress. A lot going on, the midterm elections, so many things, and we're going to have more on that story as well.
A black Trump supporter who attacked a Capitol Hill police officer has received the longest sentence so far in the January 6th criminal investigation. Mark Ponder attacked an officer with a pole and will spend the next 5 years of his life in prison. Ponder is one of the very few African Americans arrested in the connection with the riot at the Capitol. His sentence ties Robert Scott Palmer, who attacked officers with a fire extinguisher. Ponder is also one of the few Washington, D.C. residents arrested for their actions. Ponder says he believed the former president lies about the 2020 election being stolen. Prosecutors say he attacked the officer, who was one of the first officers to testify in front of the January 6th committee last year. Well, this just falls right in line with our system here, right? Just how when it comes to people of color and spending time behind bars, here's a man that was on Trump's side, so to speak, was fighting for him. It looks like he's at the insurrection, and he did a crime, so he has to do the time, but it may not add up to what the others are going to have to do. Kind of shocked, but then again, I'm not.
Listen, so Mr. Ponder is 56 years old. He's lived in America long enough to know that the rules aren't fair. And so when he chose to go into the Capitol with his brethren, he should have known that he was going to be the one singled out. But I will say the officer that he attacked, I think he attacked an officer with a pole. Is that what you read,
yes.
Romeo? That officer he's no longer an officer. He said he had to hang up his uniform and look into the second half of his life because of what happened to him. But still, as a black man, to go into, because I remember him. I remember seeing the one black man that stood out, and I was like, what are you doing? Why are you here? And Twitter seemed to agree with me, but they said, here's the thing. Although he was there, some people feel a little bit of compassion because there's 850 other people that they could sentence, but out of the 850, you chose the one black man to go a little harder on. But he should have known better. He should have known that this is what was going to happen.
Mimi, I could not have said it any better. Honestly, they used him as a pawn. He got 5 years, which is the highest sentence that we've seen of anybody. Some people just lost their flying privileges as of now, and this man has to go to jail for 5 years. So again, like you said, I am a teensy, tiny, itty bit of sympathy, because it's like, okay, you use the one black man to use him as a guinea pig. However, this black man also was running around with the Confederate flag, and you're running up in there, you're, Team Trump. So at the same time, it's like, but I also feel like he should not have gotten 5 years. I feel like if he got 5 years, every single person, those 800 people that you're talking about, should all get 5 years. It should be equal across the board.
Well, not all of them put hands on police officers, so this is a little bit different. I mean, like the officer, when he testified, when he was beating him, he didn't care if he was a police officer or not, didn't care if he had a family or not. Like he was in a zone, so to speak. Everyone there didn't do that. But best believe everyone that was there should pay some kind of price.
They should.
But everyone was there, did something. Majority of the people did something illegal. Like
they were illegal by just being there. And
my point exactly. So everybody has some jail time that they could serve. I feel like for just pulling up and being a part of it, including Donald Trump.
Don't know if they all should be equal, but I agree they all should be doing some time.
But I do remember again saying when I saw this, they were going to make an example out of the one black man who entered the Capitol just because that is what we do in America. And again, Mr. Ponder is 50. 56 years old. He's lived in America long enough to know this is what they do. So while I have a teeny bit of sympathy, listen, this is what happens when you think that you are
white,
not like the rest of us.
When you think you're white.
When you think
a Confederate flag, I mean, honestly,
yes.
At that point, honestly, I have nothing to the streets, as you will.
All right. Well, a big change is coming to North Carolina politics. As of yesterday, felons on parole, probation, and supervised release can register to vote in elections. A North Carolina Superior Court determined that denying voting rights to people serving sentences outside of jail or prison violates the state constitution. Those who qualify must have lived in North Carolina for at least 30 days prior to an election. The court's decision has been appealed, but the State Court of Appeals allowed the change to go into effect yesterday. The move allows thousands of people to vote. It could change elections in the future, including the fall midterms.
The last two former Minneapolis cops who were convicted of violating George Floyd's civil rights during his killing were sentenced in federal court yesterday. J. Alexander Keangan was sentenced to 3 years in prison, while Tu Tao got 3.5 years. Both men were convicted in February of 2 counts of violating Floyd's civil rights. The jury found the men deprived Mr. Floyd of medical care and failed to stop Derek Chauvin as he knelt on Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes. The third officer, Thomas Lane, who asked if Floyd should be rolled onto his side so he could breathe, was convicted of 1 count. He was sentenced last week to 2.5 years in prison.
That video is still so hard to watch. The Texas woman who was arrested Monday for firing a gun inside a Dallas airport had been ordered in the past to undergo psychological counseling by a judge. The Dallas Morning News says Portia Odufua had cycled through courts and mental health facilities in the city for years. Last year, she was arrested on a misdemeanor charge of pulling a fire alarm when there wasn't a fire. A Dallas judge sentenced her to an out-treatment facility, but officials say she never reported for counseling. Odufua has been charged with aggravated assault against public servant. Air Force security shot and injured Odufua, who is hospitalized.
The Federal Reserve is getting more aggressive in its fight against inflation. The U.S. centralized bank increased interest rates by 0.75 percentage point. That's the highest increase since 1994. That means borrowing money for a car or a home just got a little more expensive. It follows the Fed's decision to raise the rate by 0.5 percentage point in May. Now, high inflation is expected to force the Feds to raise interest rates several more times in the coming months. They're hoping to cool off an overheated economy.
And a Pennsylvania mortgage company owned by billionaire businessman Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway Company, will have to settle a racial discrimination lawsuit for $20 million. The Department of Justice says Trident Mortgage discriminated against African Americans and Latinos in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. They are accused of deliberately avoiding writing mortgages in majority non-white neighborhoods.
Our complaint alleges that Trident's office locations were concentrated in majority white neighborhoods, that Trident's loan officers were directed not to serve and did not serve the credit needs of neighborhoods of color, and that Trident's outreach and marketing avoided those neighborhoods. The complaint also alleges that Trident's employees exchanged emails where they referred to neighborhoods of colors as ghettos and made racist jokes.
As part of the settlement with the DOJ, Trident will have to set aside $20 million to make loans in underserved Black and Latino neighborhoods.
A Wisconsin white woman charged with a hate crime after being accused of spitting at a black teen during a George Floyd protest in 2020 is refusing to take a plea deal and wants to go to trial. Now, Stephanie Rapkin, she tried to block protesters in June 2020 when she became face-to-face with Eric Lucas, who was 17 years old at the time. Lucas has filed a lawsuit against Rapkin. Rapkin, who practices probate law, fired her attorneys yesterday. She told the judge she wanted to represent herself. Rapkin became animated as she explained to reporters that she did not spit on Lucas. She told reporters she felt threatened as the crowd came towards her. So if we look more into this and read more into the situation, we're hearing that she pulled her car into traffic, into where the protest was, right? So she interrupted the protest, then proceeded to get out of her car. So these are things where where almost where you're asking for something to be wrong, if you ask me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see how you looking
Well,
at me.
because she spit on him. I'm watching the video.
Yeah, that's
clearly.
yeah.
So
you
to
wonder
say
how she
I didn't
denies that.
spit on him,
Exactly.
I seen it, ma'am.
Mimi had that
look at
priceless look. She's like,
I'm confused. Look at the freeze frame. Look at her body language, how she's posturing, gearing up to spit on this child. He's 17 years old.
case is closed right there, right?
Case is closed. There's video evidence.
I mean,
don't
this
understand.
was one of those situations where it was white people and black people that were like, whoa, like, because you could see the tension rise so quickly, right? And so right after the situation, because there's more to the video if you get a chance to watch it online, soulmates, right after that, literally everybody starts swarming in because they're like, oh snap, she just spit in this little black boy's face. And it's like white men, it's black men, it's everybody starts getting on this lady because it's like, man, you do not spit on someone. Not to mention, this is not your job. This is not your job. You're an older white woman, or older woman. I don't even make it about white versus black. You're an older woman. Like, you do not need to be spitting in somebody's face. You should know better. On top of, it's a young boy, a very young boy. How dare you?
It's a peaceful protest that's going on, and we can see that. And if you look at everyone, like you mentioned, there's black people, there's white people that's in that march, right? That's what America looks like, right?
Yeah.
This is what we are. And if that's a threat to her, then it's a problem. She has a problem.
but see, that's what happens when white people, that's their go-to, right? She felt threatened. From what I see, there were people there, there were people standing there, and as you said, everybody was every color of the rainbow. Mm-hmm. So you saying that you felt threatened, the white man who came to the rescue, did you see him when he swooped out of nowhere? Did he threaten her too? Did she feel threatened by him, or did she only feel threatened by the young black boy? Right. Because right here comes the white man out of nowhere, like, let me, what are you doing?
Did she spit on him?
No, she didn't, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. It's like, so why?
You know, but you know what also upsets me about this too is she immediately became a victim after this.
That's
like
what
she's
I'm saying.
again, like more of the video. This video has made me irate all day watching it because after that she's just like the victim white woman, like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And it's like, if you have to spit in somebody in the face, then you need to stand on that when the block gets hot for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. A Cincinnati police officer who once appeared on a reality TV show has been removed from the streets after a racist profanity-laced outburst by her was caught on body cam.
Ridiculous. Is she gonna just sit there?
Officer Rose Valentino is seen going into a rage as she pushes her cruiser's steering wheel and screaming, saying the F and N words. Valentino was angry because of a group of cars that were lined up to pick up school students were not moving fast enough. An internal affairs investigation shows a black student gave her the finger as he passed in front of her car. That's when she went off. Valentino says she plans to seek treatment. She told her supervisors she doesn't use slurs on a regular basis. You know what? She's a police officer of 14 years, and it shouldn't be that easy for her to be triggered. If a young student flips you off and that sends you into this rage where you are yelling F-bombs, using the N-words, calling names, pounding on your steering wheel. She said things like, I hate this world, I hate being here. You know, F N words, that to me says she has a problem. And I don't believe that she doesn't use this type of language on the regular. So she has now been regulated to desk duty. The city of Cincinnati says she is no longer allowed to comb the streets and she no longer has a gun. But the fact that she's still a police officer for me is still a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Because listen, okay, here's my thing here. When you think about police officers, right? Mm-hmm. When you think about a police officer, you hold a police officer to such a high regard. Honestly, you think about them needing to be perfect. When you're in trouble, they're the person that's going to save you. You need a police officer, they're going to make it right. And so when I think about this story, I don't use a racial slur that often on a regular. When I think about Kim Potter, she doesn't kill a black person on a regular, but it happened. And so at the end of the day, police officers are not people that we can give slack to when you mess up. It's just really one of those jobs that has to be the most closest to perfection as possible. And time again, we give white police officers, male and female, so much leeway to, I don't do this all the time. I'm so sorry. I mistook my gun for my taser. I'm so sorry. It's just things that you cannot do in your line of work. Like, we can't say an F-bomb at work and say, I'm so sorry. I don't say an F-bomb on TV that much. It's just something that we allow time and time again, and it really upsets me because, yes, she's on desk duty, she doesn't have a gun, but Mimi, like you said, at the end of the day, she's still on the force. She still has a job.
She's still going to get that check.
And she's still going to get a check for it.
Well, look, you know, why are we all upset? Because she said she didn't mean this towards all African Americans. Did y'all not read that part? You know, she clearly made that statement where she said, I don't mean that towards everybody. Now, I say that jokingly because at the end of the day, she's been on the force for 14 years. So someone in that city may want to do some research for the past people that got arrested. They may be in jail right now because if she's acting this way now, who knows what she's done over her 14-year career, right? So here it is. And they know that the audio is always running. Did that bother her at all? And when you have cars in line at school, it's hard to move out of the way because if you're lined up, it's kind of hard to get out of her way. So where's the patience of the police officer? Right?
And we have to remember these were children. She was at a school stop, and so the kids were not moving fast enough for her. And so because one of a teenager may have flipped you off, you went into this rage. So that there's a lot to look into behind everything that she's ever done, anybody she's ever arrested. Because if kids can piss you off because they're not obeying your lights or your signals, there's some deeper issues there.
Absolutely. Not to mention her mental space also needs to be looked into. If you're saying, I hate this, I don't want to be here, those are trigger signs that like a deeper evaluation into how her mental space is right now needs to be looked into. So a black father whose daughter was among other black children snubbed by Sesame Place characters is suing the parent company of the amusement park. Quentin Burns and his 5-year-old daughter are plaintiffs in the $25 million lawsuit against SeaWorld. The suit alleges that 4 performers refused to engage with the child and other black kids during a meet and greet with characters last month in Philadelphia. They say the performers engaged with white children at the park. Sesame Place says it is reviewing the lawsuit and is committed to delivering an exclusive, inclusive, equitable, and entertaining experience for all of our guests. The foot is on the fire. Black people, our foot is on their necks with Sesame Place, Sesame World, SeaWorld, all the worlds, all the places, all the parks, amusement parks. I love it because so many times we let things go, like we've talked about before, and some of these instances happen before the one that kicked all of this off. And I love if $25 million is going to make some of these black families feel like, you know what, that embarrassment is worth whatever paycheck that they're going to get. Kudos to them. And I hope every single person that felt this same anger with their child sues as well. Yeah. Because they have the money.
Yeah. So the video we just saw was of what kicked it off. Right. This is a different lawsuit with another family that is actually filing this lawsuit. But they were inspired to file this lawsuit based upon the mother releasing that video and other parents releasing their video. And so I think this is just one of many to come, just because there has been a pattern, as we have seen, that this is not just a isolated incident. This is something that they regularly participate in and discriminate against when it comes to black kids. So kudos to these parents. Hopefully they get every dime. And again, I think that we're going to see more of these types of lawsuits.
That's a very steep price, $25 million.
Yeah. And will they get the $25
They may not get $25
million. But so I know you got to shoot high.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, even a $5 million payday for my pain and suffering.
But what's going to make the situation priceless is fix the employees that you hire. Let's fix it there so you don't have an ongoing problem. So that's what I'm hoping they do too. But I hope they do get some money. I don't foresee them get $25 million, but I do hope they get
I definitely think they'll get some money. And you also, Romeo, we say this all the time, if you start hitting people in the pockets, that's when things will change. And so the fact that they're going to have to pay out something to many families will make them take a second look at some of the people that they're hiring.
Absolutely.
That little shake-off cost $25 million. All right, a Louisiana black man who had his rape conviction overturned after spending 44 years in prison is suing the deputies and other officials he says framed him. 70-year-old Vincent Simmons was convicted of raping twin white girls in 1977. A jury of 11 whites and 1 black person convicted him, but tests on the girls showed no evidence of them being sexually assaulted. In the suit, Simmons alleges prosecutors and the sheriff's office framed him to cover for a rich white family in the area. Simmons' suit says a cousin of the twins molested the girls. Now, Simmons says Robert Laborde, a relative of the twins who was on the police force at the time, covered for the cousin.